Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Atheist Experience. I am your host today, Russell Glasser, and we're broadcasting live on Sunday, February 25th, 2018. And with me today is Jen Peeples.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not bad.
The Atheist Experience is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin, a Texas nonprofit educational organization dedicated to promoting the separation of church and state and the promotion of positive atheist culture. So here we are.
Yeah.
In addition, I also want to make a small announcement that we have, the crew of the Atheist Experience have been talking to the people at the American Atheist Convention this year, and we are looking into the possibility of doing a live show from, I'm told, the main stage on, let's see, the first day, which is, on Friday, March 30th. You got the wrong thing on the GoFundMe, Mark. March 30th from 12 to 2 p.m. I am going to head over there and host, and we're still looking into who the co-host is going to be, but I think Tracy is maybe going. And we've got a GoFundMe up. We are planning to bring our 10 crew members over there, and we would appreciate it if you would check out the GoFundMe, which is, you can get there by going to gofundme.com and searching for Atheist Experience, or you can also check right now on the video. If you look down below me, you can see that link, which is gofundme.com/AXP live at American Atheist Con with dashes for spaces. You're not going to remember that. So actually go to the video or our Facebook page, and we would love it if you would donate. And I'm really excited. American Atheist is always a fun time. So help us out, would you?
So this is to get the crew there.
Yes.
And I guess the equipment.
Yes.
That we need. Yep. And I guess you guys were discussing the format of this, so it may be slightly different than the normal format.
Well, yeah, I mean, it will be hard to take live callers, but there will be a big audience at American Atheists, and I'm sure we can work something out, because we know how our audience loves to hear atheists ask us questions, right?
But anyway, it'll be an interactive session, so it should be a lot of fun. Yeah,
it's going to be great. Right. And I'm sorry, not only the Atheist Experience, but we're also going to have the people from Talk Heathen there, which is the host of Talk Heathen is now cheering himself wildly out there in the studio.
In the audience, yeah.
And you can see him do that live too. So, yeah. Anyway, what's up with you?
Oh, not much. I had this email that came in actually about a little over a month ago that I wanted to talk about here, because it's an example of people talking about things and offering advice about things without actually understanding what it is they're talking about.
Oh, no.
So there are people that think that if you get the right answer to the God question, suddenly you become an uber skeptic and qualified to talk about other things. So this guy writes us, and he's very concerned about the promotion of creation science and intelligent design in public schools. And so,
as we all are.
Yes, it's not something that has escaped our notice. And he says in this email, you seem to be going through an endless cycle. Religious fruitcakes gain control of a school's governing body. They try to introduce creationism or intelligent design in some form or another. Perhaps it's teach the controversy or offer them as alternative theories. The scientific community rallies and takes court action. So far, they've won every time, but that cannot be assured going forward. How would Gorsuch vote? And these things have never gone to the Supreme Court, so they never get that far.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to say that's not a concern eventually.
Right, but
like the Supreme Court, if they get taken over by a bunch of very religious people, could always hear a case and make a blanket ruling that just throws everything into chaos.
Right.
In theory.
The thing about that, though, is that in order for a case to get to court, there has to be some dispute at a lower court level.
Right.
And so far, the lower courts have been unanimous on this.
Yeah.
So the creationists have never won a court case.
And I don't even know if they expect to. I mean, they use these court cases, which are basically at other people's expense. They sucker some city or state into standing up for a law that they know damn well is never going to hold up.
Right.
And they drum it up for fundraising purposes, but in reality, when it hits the courts, it loses over and over and over again.
Yeah. So this guy, he claims that every victory has been Pyrrhic. Maybe it's because he sees them using these as fundraising deals, but they're raising money from a limited pool of people, and I don't care if they want to waste their money on that. His solution is, suppose we do not give them a fight. Suppose we say to the parents, the choice is yours. If you want your children to have a second-rate science education, if you want to lock them out of being able to pursue a career in science, so be it. If that is not what you want, you go fight the bastards. Go after them. Kick them off your school's governing body. Insist on high-quality biology textbooks that do not skirt around the issue of evolution. Well, it's interesting that this guy offers this piece of advice because that is exactly what has happened in every single court case.
Yeah, what I don't understand in that argument is who is the you and who is the they
I think he thinks
that
the scientific community and atheist organizations are the ones filing these lawsuits.
Right.
In fact, you have to have standing in order to file a lawsuit like this. And unless we live in the district where these things are happening, we don't have standing. So it is actually the parents of the students who are being affected by this who are filing these lawsuits and bringing these cases to court. And in fact, in the latest round of this, the Kitzmiller v. Dover case, which was back in, I think, 2005
was
or
that
6.
latest? That's
it's been
13 years ago.
It's been a while.
Has there not been anything major since then?
That was such an epic dragging of the creationists and intelligent design proponents that I think they're still out there licking their wounds. And it was the parents that brought the lawsuit. And then they voted, all of the people that voted to basically put intelligent design in the curriculum, the parents, the voters, went out and removed all of those people from the school board. So they not only lost in court, they lost their seat on the school board, and they basically retook their school board. That has happened in every single case where this has come before the courts.
Right.
So,
although I don't want to let people get complacent because we now have a United States Secretary of Education who is a religious extremist and and among other things does not seem to believe that public schools should even exist.
Right.
And does think that religious education should be on an equal level with real education.
Yeah, and that is a significant problem that we have to combat on a national level, and that's why we need organizations like the ACLU and Freedom from Religion Foundation and others that basically serve as watchdogs. Here in Texas, we have our own watchdog organization. It's a one-of-a-kind organization called Texas Freedom Network. And they're the ones that are organizing all of the activities around what the Texas State Board of Education comes up with, because we do have some creationists on the SBOE, and we have to be very vigilant about their attempts at getting creationism and intelligent design inserted into the science curriculum in particular. TFN's very active on that. Many of us provide money and time and effort to TFN as we can. And so if you don't have an organization like that in your state, I suggest that you get together with like-minded individuals and create one. Texas is in kind of a unique position because our legislature and our politicians tend to overreach whenever they can. And so that's why you see a lot of activity like TFN and also a lot of Supreme Court decisions that come out of Texas that end up advancing civil rights for everyone. Because our government is, everything's bigger in Texas, and the mistakes tend to get bigger too. So,
right.
Anyway, so that was an example of weighing in on a subject without actually understanding what's going on here?
Yeah, and I mean, I do not know this emailer's situation, but it doesn't sound like he's a parent. And when he says, if those parents want to let their kids be ignorant, then let them fight against it.
Yeah.
You and I are both parents, and we damn well do care what kind of stuff the schools are pushing on our kids.
Well, and I mean, his last thing, he talks about, let us not merely teach evolution, but also the story of how the science of evolutionary biology developed and about the characters involved. And he talks about Darwin, Alfred Russell Wallace, Mendel, Watson Crick, Franklin, and many others. I'm very active in my child's school, and I know, very well what he studies in school. He studies all of that stuff. That stuff's all in the curriculum right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you're getting your information, what your school district's like, if you even know, but that stuff, this is Texas, and that stuff's in the curriculum, at least in my child's school.
So, yeah. So, speaking of talking about things that you have no idea about, completely unprompted, I haven't been asked to plug this book, but last week I attended a talk by physicist Daniel Whiteson and his cartoonist friend Jorge Cham, who some people might know as the author of the webcomic PhD Comics. So the two of them have collaborated, and I actually have a special interest in this because Daniel Whiteson, the physicist professor, is actually an old classmate of mine. He and I were on the high school debate team together at Los Alamos High School. And I listened to his talk. He's still a good talker. The Los Alamos High School debate team did very well with a lot of people. So I want to brag on my school a little bit, but also I want to mention this book, We Have No Idea, A Guide to the Unknown Universe. It's full of entertaining illustrations by Jorge Cham, and it's an interesting book because it sort of frankly acknowledges the problems that we have, or not problems, but the gaps that we have in our scientific knowledge today. And instead of just papering them over, it paints them as exciting because a lot of what science is about discovering new things that nobody has ever known before. That's what really gets scientists going. And the content of this book and of the talk they did together was basically saying, look, there's all this stuff we actually don't know yet. We don't fully understand dark matter. We don't know what the smallest particles are. There are tons and tons of things we do not yet know about the universe, and that's great because there's still plenty of chances for kids today to be pioneers and be the first ones to discover these things. During the talk, during the Q&A section, I asked Daniel, so hey, do you ever get contacted by crackpots of various kinds who like the fact that we have no idea about things and use that as an opportunity to shoehorn in the things that they think they do know? I'm talking your Deepak Chopras of the world who also don't know anything but pretend that they have the answers to these questions. And he said, yeah, absolutely. People pitch me on their silly pet theories all the time.
Well, how many times do we get emails from people with no academic background in anything, and they want our help in getting their basically strange theory of the universe peer-reviewed in some way.
Right.
And I mean, one guy literally sent us like, it was like a sheet of loose leaf paper that he had drawn some stuff on, and he scanned it and sent it to us at one point. I think I still have that somewhere in my archive. And that was like part of his thing he wanted peer-reviewed.
So A, even we can tell it's nonsense.
Yeah.
And B, even if we didn't know that, I mean, even if we couldn't tell, We're not qualified to comment on your theory of the universe at all. We're just a couple of clowns on TV once in a while. We don't have these PhDs. But if you want to know more about what we don't know about, again, the book is We Have No Idea. And also, if you want just a quick taste, you can search for a YouTube video that Daniel Whiteson and Jorge Cham did together about the Higgs boson, which was picked up by a lot of news organizations and reposted as one of the clearest explanations that anybody seems to have managed to come up with for explaining the Higgs boson to lay people. So that's it. I just wanted to throw my friend a little support.
I might have to get that for my son.
Yeah.
I might enjoy that.
I got 2 signed copies of it today, and one of them I am about to donate to the ACA library. So if anyone would like to check it out, then come on by. All right. Are we ready to get started on calls?
Let's roll.
Okay. Thomas in Georgetown, welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, well, I was, I guess the operator asked me what I wanted to talk about, and I said that I've been listening to you guys' show a lot, listen to it on YouTube, and I actually like it a lot.
Thanks.
And, well, I like how you guys get people thinking about stuff that they don't, thinking in ways that they're not used to thinking. And you could sometimes, it seems like when people talk, it's like the first time that they really thought about certain things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you grew up in a church, a lot of churches don't encourage people to ask questions and explore things.
In fact, I've heard a lot of stories about kids being punished for asking awkward questions.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess there you go. So I'm, I guess I told the operator that I was, she asked if I was an atheist or a theist, and I said I was a theist because in general, I'd say I am, but I still definitely have kind of my agnostic moments. Mm-hmm. And I don't really, I mean, if something is, been disproven, I mean, I don't believe in, that like all the animals in the world were on Noah's Ark
so you're not a young Earth Christian, at least.
No, I actually wasn't. I was raised evolution was talked about like it was just, that was the reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what denomination are you?
Episcopal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the most chill Christian groups, I think.
Right. Well, but I still, at the same time, though, I would say that it's just one of the most fulfilling things to me. Even in some of my most kind of skeptical periods, I was still having some of my best experiences in some kind of religious capacity.
In what way? What makes you feel fulfilled about that? And I'm not trying to jump on you or say that you shouldn't feel fulfilled by that. I just want more to understand a little better.
Sure. Well, I mean, I could give you lots of different examples. I had one particular experience at like a Christmas, midnight Christmas Eve service. I don't know. I'm sure somebody could give maybe a psychological account of what it was, but it was, I don't know if it was the music or what it was, but it was kind of like, it would be one of my highest or best experiences. And I have experiences. Also, I pray, and those are kind of when I pray, I mean, I can't imagine not having that, having like the prayer life.
Yeah. So what I can tell you, there was a period in my life when I was Episcopalian. I identified it as an Episcopalian. I was confirmed in the Episcopal Church. I was an altar girl, the whole 9 yards. Okay. And what I tell people is that if the only Christians I'd ever been in contact with were Episcopalians, I'd probably be at least nominally still an Episcopalian. Even though I had some doubts about sort of the supernatural claims of Christianity, I didn't have any complaint about Episcopalianism and Episcopalians themselves, because they're some of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. And I loved the church community, again, because of the people there. Unfortunately for, I guess, my parents in particular, I did meet other kinds of Christians. And I realized that they believe that they are practicing the same Christian traditions as the Episcopalians. When I went to, when I questioned what the fundamentalists were saying about what was in the Bible, I'd go and read that passage of the Bible, and it was right there. It was what the fundamentalists were saying. I'd go and present this to the Episcopalians and ask them, hey, these guys say this about this passage, what do you say? And they would kind of gloss over it with some kind of more, I guess, softer, gentler version of it. But they didn't have a good reason for why they had a softer, gentler interpretation of that. And so without them being able to tell me why their interpretation was right and the fundamentalists were wrong, I started to lose confidence in what they were telling me. And I never for once thought that they were bad or malicious people, because I certainly knew that these were some of the best examples of humanity I could ever hope to meet, versus the fundamentalists, who are definitely not good representations of humanity. But what that taught me was that there's something in this doctrine, the claims of each side cannot both be true, and obviously the religion itself is not what's making these people good. And then I, there was the questions about the claims themselves. And that was a whole other ball of wax.
Well, so I got a book. I don't have it anymore, but I had it last year for a while, and it was called it was like the worst parts of the Bible. And I remember, so there's a lot. I remember there was one that was it was in the Psalms, I think, and it was like something about it's our joy to bash the heads of the babes, or something like that. So, a couple of things that kind of the way that I came to see it was, well, I just see that all as, in the historical context of this tribal group from the Bronze Age, kind of probably somewhat representative of the time and place. But I would.
I mean, yeah, but it's weird to act like we're basing a philosophy. I mean, to, on the one hand, say that this is a bygone era and we don't follow their principles anymore, but also say that this is somehow the most perfect book ever written and has great ideas that you should live your life by.
Well, I think it's perfect book.
Well, yeah. And it sounds like part of what you get out of church is the social experience, which is totally valid. I mean, people need other people. They need friends. They need to spend time with each other. And as far as like religious music goes, I've got no place to talk. I'm a lifelong atheist, but I also sang tenor 2 in a choir starting in high school and going on for many, many years. And still, one of my great pleasures of the year is joining an old chorus I used to sing with as they do a group production of Handel's Messiah, which is very religious, but I dig Handel. None of that.
I don't know if it's the social part. I mean, part of it is the kind of the more just religious, almost the ritual, and the more like, for instance,
Episcopal rituals are very comforting. I agree with that.
Right. So, have you guys, are y'all familiar with that movie? It's kind of a documentary, I guess, but it's called Baraka.
No,
No, I haven't seen
haven't heard of it.
Okay, it was, I think it was from maybe the 90s, but it was, and then they made a sequel kind of to it. And what it is it's really well photographed. It almost looks like a National Geographic type thing, and it goes in and it shows all these rituals. It shows somebody being baptized. It shows kind of indigenous religious ceremonies and people dancing and stuff like that. And when I saw that movie, I was like, that blew me away because that stuff just speaks to me. And that really, and it's not just the way it looks, but it's tied in there is the idea that you're trying to contact or interact with this higher divine type thing. That's an important part of it.
Yeah, and again, it's complicated to have those interactions with it, especially if you are not really sure that the divine power that they're trying to contact actually exists. Because I can totally understand getting in this feeling of doing a thing with a group and feeling togetherness and feeling like the ritual you're doing is bringing everyone closer. And yet, that can kind of be applied to a lot of things. I'm going to spoil the musical A Book of Mormon, which everybody's heard I'm a big fan of, but by the end of it,
okay,
they're all still real devoted to the idea of their religion, but now they have this totally weird, unrecognizable religion that involves Boba Fett and Lord of the Rings. And was just manufactured by this nerd on the fly who doesn't really understand the religion. And yet it's still this very joyful, beautiful experience based on a thing that they all know doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, so, I see how, another thing about the Bible is that the early Christians they didn't have, the Gospels or the New Testament. That didn't come until, hundreds of years. And so they, they just kind of had, I guess, what they call, I read a thing that kind of says it's a document from the early church, like 200 or 100 or something, and it tells how they would have communion, and they would, I guess they would say something like the Lord's Prayer.
I don't even, I'm skeptical that is authentic. A lot of people, atheists in particular, have latched on to some things that claim to know what the early church founders were thinking, and I don't think much of it is historically well justified.
Yeah, I'd be...
Well, this might be like even like 200, 250 years, 250 AD or something. But the idea is that before the Gospels and the other letters of Paul and stuff were made canonical, and that they had that wasn't really a big part of it.
Yeah, well, it is certainly true that a lot of basically traditions and ideas coalesced over the next several centuries.
Right.
And that even the Bible that we see today wasn't really canonized, but was sort of put together gradually over a whole bunch of different books, and some of them didn't make the cut and maybe even completely contradict what you find in the Bible today.
Well, so in that sense, I guess what I'm saying is that Jesus, at least the way it's told in the stories, was somebody who had issues with the religious leaders of the time, and they were essentially saying that he was engaging.
Yeah, But you can find cult leaders today who have issues with the current mainstream religions, but what they want is to get praise and worship for themselves. And just because somebody disagrees with the prevailing dogma doesn't mean that they're not out to get something themselves.
No, that's not. That wasn't my meaning. Let me finish real quick. So what I was going to say is that so that was an issue then, and then also there were the kind of versions of Christianity that didn't, like the Gnostic Gospels and that kind of thing, and now there's all these different denominations. So there was always that kind of element has always been part. I mean, with Islam, you have the Quran, and then that's pretty consistent throughout. But in Christianity, you had, they changed the books that are in the Bible, and some people say these are the books, and other people say these are the books, and then you just have the kind of the unofficial versions where you meet somebody and they say, well, I consider myself Christian, but I believe in this and that. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't really feel like that there's a significant doctrine that is universal. I mean, the Gospels, I guess, would be the closest.
Well, you wouldn't get an argument from us. I mean, basically, everybody's version of their God is a one-off. So, no two people have an identical concept of what they mean when they invoke a God.
But there's certain things they tend to have in common.
No, not really.
Not really. I mean,
Well, most tend to say that God is like the source of creation and existence.
Well,
and do you believe that?
Well, yeah, that would be the minimum that I would believe.
So you think that what is written in Genesis is literally true?
No, well, he already says he doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's another thing I was going to say is that even as early as Augustine, the early church fathers, and this is definitely, they say things about Genesis and about the creation stories that almost sound like something you guys would say on your show. I mean, the early church father Origen says, he says, okay, so how are we having days when he hasn't even created the sun yet?
I'm sorry, who said that?
Origen, Origien. He's an early church father.
Okay.
And Augustine probably after Jesus and then Paul was probably one of the most authoritative voices in the history.
But I think. Yeah, okay, you go ahead.
No, I guess I'm trying to understand what your question is here because I mean you're following a similar line of.
I'm saying there's always been freedom. There's always been freedom to take whatever you think is the central message, which they actually.
Sure, but I think my question would be broader than that, which is why do we care what the central message is? What is it about the Bible that we would specifically see as authoritative at all? Why is speculating on what they meant any more interesting than just any other random person making up an idea about the universe?
Well, I would say that's a good point in the sense of if you're going up to somebody on the street who's trying to decide, if he were to ask, why should I only have so much time on my hands? Why should I even look into this? But
and your answer
for somebody
would be?
I wouldn't be trying to convince him.
Okay.
But for me, having already been there, I've already looked at it.
And?
So I believe that, so I've put in the time, and like I say, I'm still open-minded, and I have my agnostic moments. But
what do you look at? Okay, I think there's probably a misunderstanding about what you mean by agnostic. But all that aside, what you've actually presented here is the typical, very muddy kind of loose interpretation that's very personal that I find from a lot of Episcopalians. That basically you don't want to be pinned down into any doctrinal statement.
That's fine. Seems fine.
And that way, it seems like
good.
that. Well, no, what that means is that you're not willing to commit to any statement that you think you have to defend. And so,
I'll commit to statements.
Well, my question to you then would be,
but to me, being religious is not about. I have my religious life, which I find very fulfilling, and it's not about committing to statements. I'll commit to some statements.
So,
that's not really
the thing that you've committed to, though, by identifying yourself as a theist, is that you believe that this God exists. And so my question to you is define your God and present evidence of its existence.
Well, okay. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, So, like I was saying, I looked into the. I mean, there's so many.
Look.
If you really go into all the arguments and all the.
No, just your best piece of evidence
Yeah,
that your
and,
God exists.
I just want to add that we've been on this call for a while, so we may have to cut it short soon. But
sure, I'll say something real quick. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things I find convincing is that when you ask, why is there something rather than nothing, or why is there any kind of existence? And I don't mean why is there this particular universe, because there's scientific ways of talking about that, but why is there anything at all? It leads to an infinite regress.
no, I mean, I think, and for people who aren't watching the video, I'm holding up this book again, whose title is "We Have No Idea," which is a perfectly legitimate answer and not a reason to, but not a reason to jump to a conclusion about a God.
I'm not jumping. To me, it's not a jump. It's all I'm saying is that in the sense that the idea of something that doesn't have a cause. In other words, you come to an infinite regress when you ask, why is there anything?
And does God have a cause?
No, I'm not saying that God has or doesn't have a cause, but I'm saying that aspect, that aspect of reality is there and doesn't go away.
So you yourself are still winding up at a position of we have no idea, but before you get to that point, you feel like you have to inject this extra thing.
No, I'm saying that's what has most traditionally been the response to why is there anything at all? Why is there what Aristotle said? The prime mover. I'm just going back to the oldest approach.
So why does that? But the thing is, why does that lead you to the conclusion that some God exists?
Well, I'm saying that's what I'm saying that to the extent that there is something that exists without a cause, I'm calling that God.
Right. Well, we don't think that a God that isn't well defined is in any way useful as an explanation. But maybe you could mull that over and call back next time, and we can talk to you again. All right?
There's been thousands of pages defining it, so that would just be your opinion.
Yeah, but you've already rejected a lot of those. You say there's thousands of pages, but you started this call by saying that you don't believe it's literally true, which doesn't give us a lot of information to go on.
The Bible. I'm not talking about the Bible. I'm talking about Aristotle. I'm talking about philosophy.
Aristotle wasn't all that authoritative either. He had some good original ideas, but he
I didn't say anything about him being authoritative. I didn't say he was authoritative. I didn't say that.
But
you said that it's ill-defined, and I'm saying there's been thousands of words written about defining what the unmoved mover is or the prime mover, so it's not ill-defined.
But an answer can be very old and traditional and still wrong.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't care about all those other definitions of the unmoved mover or whatever. I only care about what you think.
That's what I think.
Okay.
We still have no idea what that is because you've not actually defined it.
Just look up unmoved mover.
No, I'm not.
I've read about unmoved mover. It's not a good argument.
Yeah.
No, in your opinion, it's not. But you said it wasn't defined.
Like I said, we've got a limited amount of time on the show, so we're going to move on to another caller. But you're welcome to call back again.
Yeah, unmoved mover.
Thanks.
Yep.
We know it's on Wikipedia.
Yep.
It's also on ironchariots.org, which is a great resource for this kind of argument.
Yes.
And moving on to McKinley in Georgia.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
Very well, thanks.
I'm ashamed of my hick.
Your accent?
Yes.
Don't worry about it. I mean, it's always a mistake to pigeonhole somebody's personality by their superficial features, and that includes their voice. So just relax. You're fine.
All right. I was going to ask, why bother with the labels in a I am. Sorry. Why label yourself as an anything?
Well, because it accurately describes our position on the question of God. I assume you're talking about the label atheist?
or any label, just why would you want to try to defend a certain viewpoint? Why not just
Because it's useful.
Because you could end up changing your mind, and
Of course. And then I'll change my label.
Well, let me give you one example and see what you think about it. People ask me, what do you do? And I say, I'm a software engineer. That's a label. Is there anything wrong with answering that?
No, but that's your career. That is
sure,
what.
But it's still a label because, language. Right. Language is all about communicating things in an efficient way. Like, people are not mind readers, and I could go into a very lengthy explanation of what I do on a day-to-day basis, but I find that when I say I'm a software engineer, that answers a whole lot of questions right out of the gate. And similarly, if people say, are you religious? And I say, no, I'm an atheist, we've got a starting point. That doesn't mean that there doesn't need to be more discussion and explanation after that, but it is helpful to throw out that one word which has a lot of meaning in it so that people can begin to understand where I'm coming from.
All right. Well, I guess that makes sense.
Okay. Do you, where are you coming from?
What do you mean?
Are you atheist, theist? What are your beliefs?
Well, is there I'm a deist to a point.
Okay.
I don't really care about labeling myself, but I'm a deist. But as far as I accept the scientific, discoveries and different things, but I do believe there's a God.
Sure.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Do you, so my understanding of the word deist is that you think that there is a God, but that the God is basically absent from the universe, that he was sort of a guy who started everything and then watched it go and doesn't poke around or care about people's sex lives or whatever. Is that right?
Yes.
So, see, you offered the word deist, and I understood a whole lot about what you think without needing to go into that long-winded explanation, even though I did anyway, right?
Right.
So it's useful, is all I'm saying.
Oh. Well, I could understand that.
Okay.
All right.
Trying to think of something else we could talk about.
Well, what do most people how old are you?
14.
Are you, what are you, a freshman in high school?
No, sir.
Okay. So what then?
I am in 8th grade.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well. So you're still in middle school. Do you have friends that you talk about these subjects with yourself?
Me.
Oh. So just you, huh?
Just you.
Oh, you're homeschooled.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Ah.
Okay.
But I'm not, but a free thinker kind of homeschool. That's always been encouraged in my homeschool.
Well, that's good. You should continue that.
Right.
We're not the kind of religious bunch that sit in the back trying to hide from society.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's fine. I just, I hope that you have, and I know lots of other homeschooled kids still have a lot of opportunities to come in contact with other people and have conversations. And I'm glad you called us because we like having those kind of conversations. And I hope that you have more people like that in your life that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of.
I agree. And you do know I'm a boy, right? I am a male.
I could tell, and that's also a label.
Yeah.
There goes Jane.
Which is fine. I mean, yes, I suspected that you identified as male, but even if you hadn't, it'd be fine.
Because last time I called Ron Baker or Backer.
Don Baker. Yeah.
Don Baker. I don't know why I said Ron. And Matt Dillahunty, and they said she was going to hang up on us.
Oh.
Well, sometimes people make mistakes in the spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all right. Like I said, my voice has always been kind of weird in a sense.
Well,
Well, you're still young.
that's
so,
okay. You still express yourself very well, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
And I was also going to ask you a question. It's like,
Okay.
You were talking about evolution, and you were talking about how people in the school system, people are trying to, with intelligent design and creation, people are trying to kind of cover up evolution. Like, no, you don't need to learn this. You need to, learn intelligent design.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask, well, do you think it's fair that we not only do we teach evolution in school, but we try to teach creation as well? Like,
No.
Not really. Let me put it another way. In school, we try to teach enough things that will equip kids to understand the current information about the world around them. So we spend a lot of time teaching like math at varying levels, and we spend a lot of time teaching like United States history to kids who live in the United States. We try to teach civics so that they understand how government works. We try to teach them accurate science to the best of our knowledge. If a group came along and said, hey, listen, I think that calculus is offensive.
Yeah.
And I don't want you guys to teach calculus anymore. I want you to teach people about magic number manipulating elves because the right way to find the answer to what is the area under a curve is to ask the elves and write down the number that comes into your head. We'd be against that. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Now, is the Creation Museum in Kentucky that Ken Ham created? That's not fun? That's not funded by the government or anything, is it?
No.
Actually, yes, kind of.
It through tax breaks.
Right.
Yeah.
They got a lot of tax breaks and they have actually a complicated history where some other governor came in and tried to revoke the funds that had been given to this group for their misleading fake science museum, and they basically, the Creation Museum sued them to get the money back, and they won, which we think sucks for the state of Kentucky, but that's what happened. But it's not just funded by the government, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, because I was, I don't know. Never mind.
Okay.
Yeah. I just got done talking to the Talk Heathen, and I had everything laid out, and I had a good conversation with them. And it's like now they get on here, it's like I thought I had everything planned out, and now it's like it's kind of embarrassing because it's like, hey, I'm kind of stuck on stupid. I don't know what to say.
No, you're not. You're not stuck on stupid.
Look, you are stuck on 14. That's the worst thing that can be said about you. Everybody learns stuff over time. Not anybody knows anything, or as my friend Daniel says, we have no idea.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best things you can do is learn to recognize and acknowledge when you make mistakes so that you can correct them and not make those mistakes all your life. That's part of growing up, and it's no big deal.
Okay. But again, with the creation thing, it's like, okay, you have, why do people still think that that's a reasonable debate? Why do they think it's like, okay, it's a balanced argument? It's like, okay, you got evolution on this side and you got creation on this side, and they can, for some reason, we're still having this argument, but yet at the same time, it's like, it's not even a comparable thing. One's backed up by evidence and the other's backed up by faith.
Right.
True.
And that's why it's not taught in schools, is because creationism and intelligent design are religious arguments. They're not based on science. So we're still having this debate because there's still people out there who, they're frankly making money off of pushing what they think is a controversy. It's a completely non-controversial concept in biology. You know, that evolution happened, it's real.
Right.
Yeah.
And the job of science classes in school is to teach science.
Right.
Not to teach the personal pet religious theories of whatever group happens to have the ear of the education department.
Right. What about the young Earth? Like, I want to know how in creationism they have to believe the Earth is only 6,000 years old. Like, how does that affect their faith?
Well, they don't have to believe it. There's different schools of thought within the creation community. So there's the young Earth.
I know you have older.
Yeah, you have young Earth creationists, you have old Earth creationists, and even among the young Earth creationists, they can't decide if it's 6,000 years or 10,000 years or something else. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. You'd have to ask them what their justification is for pinning that down to, 6,000 or 10,000 or some other number.
Well, I have two grandparents who are young Earth creationists. Yeah. We argue all the time. We argue all the time. And they and I'm always saying, how, and they say, you're adding on to the Bible. I'm saying, how am I adding on to the Bible? I asked them, you're adding on just as much as I am.
Yeah.
That is true, and it's well said.
It's like you're putting pieces together. It's like you're saying, okay, and they keep saying, in the beginning, and God created the earth in 6 days, and I'm saying, okay, but what does that have to do with when it began?
Yeah.
Why couldn't it have started 13.8 billion years, God taking a break, and then coming back a few billion years later?
Yeah.
And it really just goes to show the egotistical characteristics in humans. I mean, if you think about it, we have to think that we're the center of the universe.
Well, that's a good point. I mean,
and that's really what it is. It's like, that's really what religion is.
Yeah.
It's a way to make people feel comfortable, like creationism. It's like, no, we're not animals. We didn't come from animals. And,
Let me make a little, a casual recommendation to you that, being homeschooled, you're not going to get necessarily assigned a lot of books about this topic, unless maybe you ask for them and your parents think it's a good idea. But what I would like to recommend is that you approach the question of evolution not as some kind of political controversy, because that's not the main thing. I think what's more important is to understand why it's considered settled science and how we got to this point in the last 150 years or so. So what I'd like to recommend is that you just look for a book about evolution that's recommended at Layman. The one that I found the best personally was The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins, which I found had a very clear style that was understandable and doesn't push atheism at all. It's just primarily about the science. But I'm sure that people can message me and recommend better books about evolution for someone your age.
Well, my parents get me books all the time. And
Okay. Well, then tell them I said you should check out The Blind Watchmaker.
Right, but they're really understanding. Like I said, they encourage me to be a free thinker. They are really encouraging. In fact, I got, for Christmas, I asked for The Origin of Species, and I got that. Been reading on that.
And I think The Origin of Species is a perfectly good book, but you have to bear in mind that it was written in a style that was that is more reminiscent of the 1850s.
Yeah.
Is that right? 1859, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And so it's not necessarily the most approachable book, and also it's not necessarily accurate because there have been 150 years worth of scientific advancement since then. So you might be better off reading something more up to date.
Right. Darwin's still my hero, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure he'd appreciate that. All right.
No, I think Darwin would be proud to know that if he was alive today, he'd be proud to know that his theory was proven true.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks for calling, McKinley, and we'll talk to you again some other time.
All right.
All right.
See you
Bye.
around.
Okay.
Pedro in Lebanon.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. You are in the country of Lebanon?
Lebanon.
Yeah, sorry, I mumbled. I know it's
okay.
Lebanon.
Yeah.
That's okay. I wasn't expecting to be.
Okay.
The
So,
I don't mean to put you on the spot. How are you today?
It's okay. Fine. I was expecting Tracy. They told me Tracy, but it's okay.
no, it's
I'm glad it's okay because we're the only ones here. It's me and Jen Peeples.
yeah. I was gonna say it's been on the schedule for me to co-host for a while now. So
Yeah, I saw it on the website. So anyways, I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you already know my topic. So it's basically, I have this friend. So first of all, I'm an atheist. And I have this friend. He's not completely an atheist and not completely a theist. He's right on the doors, if you want to say. And the only reason, so there was this time when we actually sat down and I described to him what and how I viewed the universe, and it's basically me saying that I prefer to say that I don't know rather than claiming something that I have no proof of. And we were able to move into the discussion till we reached a point where I truly couldn't know what to answer, and that was basically him saying that, what about the very, very tiny possibility that hell might actually exist? And that's when I really couldn't answer him, because how can you answer that?
yeah. So basically, this is the kind of the crux of Pascal's wager. That
exactly.
You're better off believing because on the remote chance that a hell exists, you'd spend eternity in eternal torture. It's one of the, I guess, one of the most vile aspects of religion. That
exactly.
It's nothing more than this appeal to fear, and it's indoctrinated in kids from an early age. And the fact that it still grips adults who no longer actually believe in a God, but they're still clinging to religion on the outside chance that hell might exist and they don't want to go there. It just kind of speaks to how powerful that level of indoctrination is. And I don't think there's an easy way to break that indoctrination. I do know from talking to a lot of people and from, going from that transition from theist to atheist myself, that fear of hell subsides over time. And sometimes it helps to talk to other non-believers and to kind of explore the origins of that particular aspect of theology, as terrifying as it can be, basically not letting that hide under a rock. Look under the rock, turn it over, examine where it comes from. What I found when I started investigating the Christian concept of hell was that a lot of people's version of hell isn't found anywhere in the Bible. It's actually this extra biblical description that a lot of very, I guess, talented and sadistic writers came up with.
Actually, what religion is your friend from? You guys are
Muslim.
Yeah,
Muslim,
that's what I thought.
And so I mean,
clearly right there.
yeah, and so I mean, I don't know what the Muslim, the origins of the Muslim concept of hell is, but people's concept of this, eternal torture, it has to come from a very sadistic mind. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
And I mean, it's like, what kind of benevolent creator would produce something like that as a punishment?
Exactly. I think here's the point, because at some point during the discussion we reached this possibility that he might not be a truly benevolent God. So there is this it was a weird imperfection, but he accepts that there might be a possibility regardless of the type of God. So just the mere possibility of a hell existing.
Yeah, but
he accepted possibly the inexistence of a God, but the hell thing is...
If you come at it from that direction, there are all kinds of possibilities that that could be anything you can imagine. Just because something is written in the Quran doesn't mean that that's the most likely possibility. I think my favorite answer to Pascal's wager of all time was by the great philosopher Homer Simpson, who said, suppose we've chosen the wrong God. Every time we go to church, we're just making him madder and madder.
Yeah.
Reading the Quran and following the Muslim faith is no guarantee that you're escaping hell. As a matter of fact, if there's no reason to think that there couldn't be like a perverse God who only rewards atheists.
Yeah.
Not for any particular drive towards right or wrong, but he just thinks it's funny to torture forever people who have found the right answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I think that's likely? No. But I don't base my actions on these outside fantasy chances of things that could theoretically be true in some universe. There's a guy named John Loftus who was my guest on the show once. He framed this as what he called the outsider test for religion, which is if somebody from a different religion than you were to make the same kinds of arguments, would you find those convincing? And oftentimes the answer is no, which is why the arguments that people offer for their own religions, they can sometimes see that they don't make any sense when they shift their perspective like that.
Yeah, I see.
So I guess, sorry, we don't have any, advice as to, hey, do these 3 things and your fear of hell will disappear or anything like it for your friend. But it is a process, and I guess, if you can just reassure your friend that it does go away at some point.
Yeah, because you see, for me, I never had that fear. I just actually I was happy that I accepted that it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a nice idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I have a further question, and that is, okay, let's say that he is over the fear of hell, because he also has this other fear of, even if there is no hell, that means there's nothing after that.
Right.
And that is scary for him. And so there is this fear regardless of what he tries to believe.
Right. But the thing is, it's kind of like Richard Dawkins' comment that, just by being born, you've won the cosmic lottery.
Right.
I heard you say that once.
You get to be here and experience life. And so that's it. It's like, okay, this is the one and only life you're sure to have. So you're going to spend it on your knees begging some non-existent deity for favors, or you're going to go out and live your life and, on your deathbed, look back on a wonderful life with friends and family and, great experiences and think, okay, this was really cool. Or, you're going to approach death with fear and dread and regret. My goal is to never approach death with regret.
Yeah, exactly. I see your point.
Yeah.
I really hope that he does see that some way.
Yeah. I mean, you can obsess about the fact that, one day we're all going to die. And, and it's not something fearful. It's a normal process that happens. And, it's like, I know that the people who care about me will be sad and they're going to miss me, and I know this because I've had the same experience when people I care about have died. But I won't care because I'll be dead. And it's just, game over.
Also, if you'll let me, I'd like to give you some absolution. If your friend never accepts that he doesn't need to be scared of hell, it's not your fault.
Right.
It's not your job to fix everybody's opinions. Your friend might live his whole life thinking that there's a hell and thinking being a good Muslim is the only way to stay out of it. And that's a shame for your friend, but it's not your fault. Just keep
I know.
being a good friend.
Yeah. No, it's only because he asked me and he wanted to enter the discussion. That's all.
Okay. Well,
So
thank you for calling.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good luck to you and your friend.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
But Don in Los Angeles.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Actually, the reason I'm calling is because something that Tracy said several years ago. She was dealing with Eric the Watchmaker. I don't know if you guys remember that particular episode.
No, sorry.
No.
Okay. Anyway, it's about the Kalam thing, and
Okay.
and it's funny because it keeps coming up. It's been coming up just about every episode you guys are on. It's
Well,
always
sure.
coming up.
Christians seem to think it's a really good argument and keep using it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me just go through what I understand about theoretical physics.
Are you
no?
okay? Are you?
Yeah.
Are you a theoretical physicist?
No, I am a amateur theoretical physicist. I follow Sean
Okay.
Connery,
So-
Sean Connell, and
Do you have
Krauss.
formal education in theoretical physics?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that disqualify me?
No, but it also means we're not very inclined to accept your word for something that you understand about physics. I mean,
I don't-
it's nothing personal. You wouldn't accept my word for something I said about, Renaissance history or something that I know very little about, right?
Yeah, but this is something that's come up a lot, and you guys are aware of a lot of the physics that's going on, the arguments that are being brought up on physics. So what I'm going to tell you is, and I'll make it really short, I don't know how much time we have, I'm going to just say very quickly what is the main issues right now in theoretical physics as to where we are, where we're going.
According to a guy who isn't a physicist. Got it.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I am not a physicist.
All right.
Okay.
So when we start with the Big Bang, okay, that's a start, right? We don't know what happened before the Big Bang,
Sure.
but we're pretty sure about what happened at the Big Bang or just right after that.
Well, yeah, approximately
Yeah.
10 to the minus something seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait a minute, are you a theoretical physicist?
Nope. None of us in this conversation are those. I actually had the number at the top of my head at one time, but I'm getting older, so what are you going to do?
Okay, so it starts off being very tiny, very dense, very hot. There's no coordinates within it. There's no inside or outside. It's very smooth. Entropy is very low, and there's a lot of potential energy. Okay, and as the universe progresses, it cools down. We got the formation of atoms and planets and galaxies, and now we know that the galaxies are speeding away from themselves at ever increasing speeds. And so the projection into the future is that it's going to end very cold, very smooth, very non-dense, high entropy, and equilibrium.
Okay, it's funny you should bring this up because I mentioned I just went to a talk by my friend Daniel, who is a physicist. And this was actually one of the things he talked about, that for a while there was some amount of uncertainty about whether the universe would continue expanding and die of cold, basically, or would collapse back in on itself and crunch. That pretty much, Larry Krauss and Sean Connell, both of them, and a bunch of other physicists. I've been watching this stuff for a long time. Yeah, but I mean, this is one of those things that as he mentioned, we had no idea about, and we're starting to solidify more answers about right now, and the answers are somewhat surprising, and that's why that's why the concept of dark matter came up. But I'm not sure how long an explanation you want this to be. Where are you going with this? I'm going, because it's important to understand what, they use the term heat death, where the... But you already said something wrong, which is that people assume that there's going to be a heat death of the universe, and that's actually not where we're at right now.
No, I'm sorry. I have to disagree with you. If you check with theoretical physicists,
I did.
He just went to.
This week, I went to a
Okay.
talk by a guy who works at CERN.
Okay, what I'm saying, I understand that. Okay,
Okay.
but these are models, and the models that are being presented are trying to answer the question of what. The basic question is this: when things become at a state where there's total equilibrium, everything is cold, how do you get back to a state in which everything is dense and very small? And that is the problem. So Sean,
Okay, but
brought
I
up
just said,
what you're saying is one person's idea. There's a bunch of models out there, and because he said that, I can tell you that the vast majority of theoretical physicists are in a conundrum as to what happens when we have reached total entropy.
I'm sorry, not only did we start off asking if you're a physicist, but you're now contradicting something that I heard actual physicists say.
Okay, well, we can say that there's a question there, okay?
Sure, we can, but then I don't want you to build an argument off of the assumption that you started with.
The argument that I'm building is actually the majority of theoretical physicists' ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to Larry Krauss. I've listened to Sean Connell. I mean, I've listened to my recent one is Frank Wilczek, which I would hope to get to at some point, but that's down the line a little bit. But the question is, how do you get back to a state in which there is no entropy, high energy, denseness, and smoothness? And this is a conundrum. Sean Connell came up with this idea.
Can you skip to the answer?
Back in the early. To the what?
The answer. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to get to someplace.
The answer is they don't know.
Okay.
That's the answer. The answer is they're trying to develop models that will get them to the point of how do we get back to a state of high energy, low entropy, small dimension, and an expanding universe. And Connell's original model was that
yeah, but I meant get to the part where you talk about why you called, because you're giving a whole lot of preface and background, and I just want you to make your point because we've got like 18 minutes left in the show, and we're not going to spend it all on this call.
Okay, all right. So the question is, if the universe does end in what's called heat death, in which nothing is happening, how do you get back to a point in which
you're just asking the same question again?
Yeah, you said this already.
Yeah. Okay. So that is basically the question. What I'm bringing up is a conundrum that.
Yeah. What's the answer?
Yeah.
Right now, you want me to give you the answer?
I want you to get to the point of why you called. You have a point to make, right? Make it.
I can't make a point until I get to a basic understanding of what the problem is.
All right. Well, let us know when you get to that understanding.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's your problem.
I was pretty much done with that guy when he said, no, I have no background in theoretical physics.
I don't mind talking to somebody who doesn't know theoretical physics.
See, I wouldn't mind, except it always goes down this path.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind having a discussion about the things we read, but then I don't need this person's conclusions based on his incomplete understanding of physics.
Yeah.
But some conclusion would have been nice.
Yes.
And it didn't look like we were anywhere close to that.
Yeah.
Angelo in Alaska.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Great to talk to you both. Hey, yeah, I just want to correct you guys on one thing about how great and big Texas is. We got you beat.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Hey,
geographically, you are correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So, at any rate, I am an atheist, and I have wanted to talk to someone about this for a while. There seems to be more of a trend now for people in the, particularly the Christian faith, to be somewhat more accepting of homosexuality. I'm starting to see that more churches are saying things like, Jesus didn't have a problem with gays, and et cetera. And that's a kind of a good thing. And at the same time, to me, it's probably not, because they're glossing over the entire statements that are in that book. I don't know how a person who is homosexual could possibly accept a religion that makes a point of calling them an abomination and saying that they're to be put to death. I don't buy this nonsense that there's some sort of new testament or new whatever the hell it is that somehow wipes all of that stuff out of Leviticus and Romans and whatnot.
Well,
because
I don't.
Their boy Jesus, he basically said that he did not come to wipe anything out, that he in fact was there to enforce the law.
Yeah. I don't buy it either, especially since I don't have the verse at hand here, but there's a passage in Luke that actually suggests that that prohibition on homosexuality is still very much in play for the New Testament. So
Sure.
It's not just based on Old Testament scripture. I agree. And the fact is, whether Christians are more accepting of homosexuality depends very much on the denomination. So, for example, Episcopalians, they've been fine with that for a long time. It's been, no big deal. A lot of the other mainline progressive Protestant religions are on the same page. Catholics are still as homophobic as ever.
Yeah, that's true.
There's different Protestant religions that, kind of go from one end of the spectrum to the other. Most of the fundamentalists are still very anti-gay. And these fundamentalists are the ones that are funding a lot of these they're kind of, they're not legitimate research groups.
I understand what you're talking about. I didn't want to gloss over the hatred that's still there.
But I mean, I understand what you're saying, and it's something that's baffling to me. I did a couple of interviews at Austin Pride back in, I think, 2009, something like that. And they were really kind of heartbreaking, because one of the interviews I did was with a trans woman who identified as a Christian, and she was part of a local church that it's not like a mainline denomination. It's some kind of church that was specifically for LGBT Christians.
Absolutely baffling.
Yeah,
I just cannot wrap my hand. It's also very much like so many people of color who don't have a problem with the Bible, who embrace it, and they seem to have glossed over completely the passage there in Exodus where they're saying that slavery is an okay thing. You can own a human being.
Yeah.
And you don't have a problem with that.
Well, but that's
outrageous.
And that's all about indoctrination. And in fact, gay Christians are just as indoctrinated as anybody else. And one of the other interviews that I did there was actually with a young lesbian who admitted that she really didn't believe, but she couldn't come out to her parents as an atheist because she'd already come out as gay, and she just thought that was just too much for them to deal with. That they were finally okay with her being gay, and she couldn't just hit them with the fact that she didn't believe anymore. So I think a lot of people, they find some, community like this LGBT church to belong to, so that, they can be openly gay and at least have that aspect of their life intact without having to have the family drama surrounding coming out as atheist. But the other person that I found really was kind of one of the tragic interviews that I did was with a young gay man who identified as an evangelical Christian. And when I asked him how he could reconcile his sexuality with what it says in the Bible, he said, well, this is my sin, and it's a sin like anything else that people have, whether it's gambling or alcoholism or drug addiction, and it's just something I have to deal with, and he was basically saying that his God accepts him as a flawed human being. And I thought that was tragic because it's like no heterosexual person would describe their sexuality as a sin that was imposed on them by a God, that's something they had to overcome.
Right.
So anyway.
I just want to add that
amazing brainwashing there.
Yeah. As my friend Jeff D has said very often, the Bible is the big book of multiple choice.
Yeah.
And you'll find that almost all Christians, first of all, have not thoroughly read the Bible, and second of all, don't have a problem with dismissing individual parts of the Bible that seem inconvenient or wrong to them as, well, it's correct, but it's metaphor or something.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you're a person who believes that your book is the word of your God, then you couldn't possibly do that. So this demonstrates again the hypocrisy.
And yet they do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're right to do that, but you're asking how could people do that, and the answer is that we have all kinds of demonstrations about how people rationalize things. Your question, I think, is more about how do people manage to rationalize things to themselves than about what the objective meaning of the Bible is, which it is very, very slippery, especially when you're dealing with modern Christians of various denominations.
Yeah.
So it's really more a question about psychology than anything else.
Yeah.
Right, but my question also was, how do you feel as an atheist?
The Bible is garbage. Is that the only?
Yeah.
No. What I was going to say is, how do you deal with people who, on one hand, one view, you can say that they are trying, or at least in some way, moving out of that, where they're at least acknowledging that these prohibitions and whatnot are wrong and evil. They're at least doing that part. Some of them are. But at the same time, they're not going far enough. I guess that was my problem, because I ripped into a guy for this very same thing, and I didn't want to he obviously was cracking on the whole religious belief. He started to do that, but then when he started in on the homosexual thing and the slavery thing, I just had to rip him. And I'm wondering if maybe I was too hard or too harsh. At the same time, I don't think I was, because I think if you're going to be a hypocrite, then come out and admit that that's what you're doing.
Well, that really depends a lot. The ability to communicate effectively with a person is not just a matter of always of presenting to them what's straight up true or what's the facts. And you will often find that if you want to know if you were too hard on the person, the real answer to that question can be found in, do I still have a good relationship with that person where I can still talk to them and have influence over what they think? If you drive that person...
And to another extent, I don't care. To another extent, I really don't give a damn. If your mindset is that way, where you're going to just try to rationalize hatred, you understand that the gay community, just 30, 40 years ago, if you were gay, they were putting you into mental institutions and zapping your freaking brain out.
But if you don't care what this guy thinks, then you don't have to care how you're communicating with him. And if you want to convince him of something, then you do have to care what he thinks. It can't be both. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that you were right or wrong to talk to him a certain way. I'm just saying it depends on the outcome, and the outcome is not always determined by the raw facts of the conversation.
Beautiful. Okay.
Okay. I mean, that's all. Did you have anything else, Jen?
No, okay. I'm good.
All right, thanks for calling. And
hey, thanks. You guys take care.
All right.
We have just a few more minutes, so before I jump to the last caller, who will definitely be shortchanged in the conversation, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I want to mention one more time our GoFundMe fundraiser to get the Atheist Experience produced live at the American Atheist Convention next month. You can find it on this video, which is on our YouTube channel. The date is February 25th, 2018. And if you are enjoying the show and are local to Austin, come join us at Star of India right afterwards, 6:15. See you there.
Right.
And so we're going to hit our last caller. And again, Yosef in New York, we got like 5 minutes left, and I'm sorry to shortchange your topic, but what's on your mind? You got to make it quick.
How are you guys?
I'm good.
Yeah, what's it called? I'm a Muslim, and I have a question. I've been watching you guys for almost 2 years now, and
Thanks for watching.
Thank you. In Islam, we believe that everybody will rise after death in the Day of Judgment, and obviously, it's atheism. They believe once you die, nothing happens. But my question is, if Islam was true, and then you guys did rise up, what would your reaction be? That's the only question I have.
Right.
Oops.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd probably have some questions about, the God, saying, hey, how come, you didn't make things more obvious to us?
Right. But, I mean, obviously at that point where this unexpected thing happens, there's not a lot to do at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, except ask for more information and then ask if it's, if if it's okay if he would please not torture me forever.
Yeah.
But, I've been watching a BBC show called Dirk Gently where a number of people have been thrown into this really bizarre parallel universe that is somehow based on the scrawlings of a young child, and it has knights and wizards, but everything is really, really weird. And the question you're asking me is similar to how would you feel if I forget what that world is called, but how would you feel if you wound up there? And the answer is, I don't know. I'd have to deal with that as it came up and improvise.
Yeah, I know you guys have to leave soon. It just, for me, I don't know if do you guys believe that Hitler was a good person?
No.
Who?
Hitler.
Oh, Hitler, no.
I mean,
No.
you wouldn't be asking that question if you didn't think the answer was obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's hard for me to believe a man like Hitler killing 6 million innocent Jews and a woman that's innocent all her life, at the end of the day when they both die, they both will be in the same situation. Just a warm buffet in a grave.
Sure, but
Right.
would Anne Frank wind up in heaven under Islam?
Excuse me?
Would Anne Frank, one of the most famous victims of the Holocaust,
Yeah.
who was a Jew, would she wind up in heaven under Islam?
Well, for me, to be honest with you, I don't know too much about. I know Islam, but we're like if we don't know the question, we really can't answer it. But
Okay.
what I do know.
Well,
is
then
that
that's not a very good metric of saying that Hitler would be treated differently than his Jewish victims. It seems very likely that under the doctrines of Islam, a lot of the Jews would wind up in hell, as much as Hitler, maybe with Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's it called? What I believe that Islam teaches us that if the people that had no knowledge about Islam, God wouldn't do unjust for them in the Day of Judgment. Like he wouldn't just put you in hell without you knowing. Like if you had a good life and you never knew about Islam, that's unjust if God just throws you in the hellfire. I mean, that's my opinion. I know you guys have a different opinion.
So if I were ignorant of Islam and I died, I could get to heaven. But if you told me about Islam and then I died without accepting it, then I would probably go to hell?
No, like if you guys in your heart, you see the truth, but you deny it. That's what we believe. Not like
okay. But if I didn't know about it in the first place, I'd be clear, right?
In the Day of Judgment, we believe that you're gonna find the truth, and God is gonna judge you with just. He wouldn't unjust anyone. It's gonna be everything is gonna be just.
Okay. What if Hitler decided to accept Islam on the Day of Judgment?
No. I'm sorry. No. In your lifetime, like Hitler lived a bad life. What I believe, he killed innocent people, and And I know he's what's it called? And when he died, that's it. Your test is over. We believe life is a test.
Okay.
So Anne Frank could be in hell, and she could be Hitler's roommate, for all we know.
Yeah. But
it's not a great moral system.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's it called? Yeah, I just wanted to know your opinions, and you guys, and I just wanted to know about what would you guys feel. I just felt like, for me, my opinion, I just feel like that's unjust. A lady that's innocent and Hitler both are gonna end up the same situation. That's my only question. But and I know I can't prove there's a God, because I've been watching you guys shows a lot, and a lot of people don't never show proof. It's really hard. But at the same time, we can't disprove there's a God, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I told you we had a short time left, and now it's over. And I just want to say that it was going to drive me crazy. The land I was thinking of was Wendemore. But anyway, thank you for calling. Try again some other week. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Russell and Jen. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
And that's our show. See you at American Atheist, hopefully, and see you at Star of India. Thank you for being my co-host today.
Thank you. It was fun.
Bye.